All right, and here now with us, as promised, JW gonna weigh in on obviously the sports world's attention, and you see stories that cross over into interest with people who don't know that basketball is spelled with two L's, and all of a sudden they're interested in what's going on the heels of Terry Rozier being arrested, Chauncey Billups being arrested. And they're seemingly being, I don't know, NBA players used as bait, maybe throwing, Rozier faking an injury, obviously getting the under on stats and controlling bets and all that, and Chauncey Billups being a part of poker games. JW, as you kind of process and digest those stories from last week and what the NBA is going through, where does your mind go as to how it applies to tennis? Are we fraught for corruption because there's only two players and one can throw it? Where does your mind go with this, JW?
We are fraught. This was sort of the sexy story this week, and some of this was about X-ray rooms and in contact lenses that can read poker cards. But I think the bigger question is about integrity of competition in sports. And what do we love about sports? That it's unscripted and we don't know what's happening, and the whole bottom falls out if competition gets corrupted. What do you need to have happen? Well, you need to have someone who can manipulate an outcome, and there are few sports that are easier to do than tennis. And I think that's one thing. I mean, maybe we'll get to Davidenko, which is sort of the big tennis scandal. It's almost 20 years ago. That was match fixing. What does match fixing mean? One player dumps a match, allegedly. We are in a world now where you don't have to lose a match. You need to double fault the third service point of the second game of the second set. All of these micro bets and these prop bets, I think that's where a lot of the issues arise. Tennis is. Just go through the checklist, right? I mean, first you need economic incentive. There certainly is that. A lot of these suspicious wagers are coming where there's much more money wagered on the match than the player could ever make. You've got one athlete, right? You don't the running backs. The football team's that's a tough sport to throw, right? Unless you're a quarterback, right? But a tennis player, hey, listen, we hit 40 unforced errors anyway. What's one long forehand? Part of me with this whole story is what did you expect was going to happen, right? We had this huge about face in sports where suddenly the same leagues that were saying this is going to invite unsavory characters and this is going to ruin competition and this is going to sully our sport, they all did an about face, right? And they all said, well, it's going on anyway. We may as well bring it in from the dark corners and apply sunlight, and we'll be able to catch people with all these partnerships and with technology, and we'll be able to monitor. You've got athletes. They are all, we're all creatures of incentives. They're competitive to begin with. A lot of them are young. It's sort of like, what did you expect was going to happen? But as far as tennis goes, this is a very popular betting sport. We've all heard whispers. Do I think the Wimbledon final is rigged and tainted? No. But I think just logically, just as a common sense thought exercise, tennis is pretty vulnerable here. It doesn't take much, especially in this era of live betting and prop bets where it's not a question of winning or losing and match fixing. It's second serve 70 minutes into the match fixing. So, I think tennis is in a pretty precarious spot here.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Davydenko match. And so let's just, for people that have just kind of read headlines and are like, wait a minute, I thought it was about poker. It's about throwing a game. So Terry Rozier was a player for the Hornets and someone that we watched and weirdly played his ass off, but then apparently didn't for at least a game.
At least a game.
Yeah. So basically the way it works is bettors come in and they bet the under on 3, 4, 5 statistical categories for Terry Rozier. So let's say he averaged close to 20 points a game. They're like, okay, we're going to take the under on his average or whatever he's suspected to score based on matchups that day. Same with assists, same with whatever else. Terry Rozier, 6 minutes in, he played 10 minutes, whatever it was, said, my ankle hurts, right? There was no documentation before the game. I don't know what the fallout was afterwards. But by him taking himself out of the game, all of a sudden, all those bettors win. So it's basically like insider trading, right? If we're putting it in financial terms. So he controls the outcome of all of these bets. And there was an uncharacteristic amount bet on the unders for his statistical categories for that day. So that would imply, and they've since proven, that there was something sideways. Information was getting out, right? The betting markets were getting tips on who was playing. Chauncey Billups was sitting, his good players for his bad players, and it seemed like the betting markets were ahead of the official announcements. That means someone has inside information and is releasing it to this ring of bettors, which obviously is an illegal activity. So, level set. We rewind to Nikolay Davydenko, where I'll get some parts of it wrong, but I promise you the gist of it is 95% there, right? Playing Vassallo Argüello in 2007 at Monte Carlo. Davydenko was, I don't know what he was at the time. He's always like a top 5 guy for.
I think it was Poland for what it's worth. Sopot, Poland.
Oh, it was. It was in Sopot. Okay. So Sopot, Poland. So somewhere around there. Davydenko. So maybe even more obvious to throw a match at a 250 and not a 1,000. Anyways, so Davydenko wins the first set, rolling, and Davydenko's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the world, whatever it is, and Vassallo Argüello is not. He's 60, 70, 80, challenger kind of, maybe between the tours type guy, if I remember correctly. You wouldn't think, Mike and Techie Sean, that if a guy 4 in the world wins the first set, that you would get $7 million in action for the other guy to win the match. Like, Vassallo Argüello is going to turn this thing around against a player that's much better and in form, everything else. That's what happened. So, also, it's very outsized, the amount of bets. Like they said, most matches at that moment got like 300K in action. This got 7 million in the first little bit of the second set. So you fast forward, what's going to happen? Argüello wins the second set. Strange. Davydenko pulls out with an injury that was not previously disclosed. So it's pretty similar to the circumstances around Terry Rozier. Right. And then the betting companies kind of void it based on like crazy practices. And then there are lawsuits, people saying, give me my money. It got really ugly. There was a full investigation. The ATP, you felt like, kind of just wanted it to go away. There was ultimately, I don't think there was any punishment for Davydenko. And
it was cleared.
Yeah, if there was, it was like not much. I don't remember him being gone. Pretty sure I remember him kicking my ass shortly there afterwards. But if there is inside information, that is how someone can affect millions and millions in betting markets and shifts. And it's basically insider trading, and you need a single person to affect it in tennis. I know another story, just to provide some color, because we don't know the reasoning behind, the if Davydenko knew what was going on and he was cleared. So let's make that very, very, very clear. We also don't know the reasoning, right? It could be, I'm in on it, like a Terry Rozier, or it could be, I have a friend, I'm not going to name names, but played in Moscow, or St. Peter's, somewhere in Russia one year, and gets a call in his room at the host hotel one night and says, this is the offer for you to throw the first round match.
Wow.
You can contact us here. And it was 7-8x what he would have gotten. And this is someone who was, I don't know, a career high 60, 70, and then played between 70 and 200 for, bulk of their career. He didn't do it. But the implication was, we're there, we'll be watching you, we'll be in the first row. Like it was intimidation, right? And it was threatening. So he had two decisions. One, he goes the financial one. That's not worth any reputation tarnishment. I like being on tour. I'm not going to do that. But then it's the other thing. It's like, go to certain places. This NBA thing was driven by the mafia. It's a scary thing, JW.
That's a great point. And in the Davydenko case, the vast majority of the money was bet from the account traced to Russia, right? It wasn't like that wildly disproportionate amount bet on this throwaway 250 match was spread out. During the investigation, the investigators were threatened. One of the reasons the investigation took, I think it was more than a year. One of the reasons the investigation took so long was because the investigators were being threatened. And then Davidenko, it was very strange. I guess technically the headline would be he was cleared, but the ATP essentially said there was no evidence of wrongdoing. I don't have it in front of me, but it was like no evidence that there were of wrongdoing, which is not quite. It's like we couldn't prove the case. It's not like, yes, you're free to go. And one thing that always stuck me, I'm glad you raised a point, because we're creatures of incentives. We just said this, right? And a lot of it's like, why would these millionaire athletes risk their reputation? I think in a lot of these cases, there is a duress angle as well. And I'm glad you brought up threats, because some of this is like, hey, here's an easy way to make more in money than you would ever make in prize money. All you have to do is dump. But these are some unsavory characters sometimes. I mean, the mob poker game allegations, the kind of folks that threaten investigators to the point that they remove themselves. I think there's a whole element in some of these match fixing cases of duress and defense, and we know where your family lives, and we often frame this as why would I heard this? Why would Chauncey Billups make $9 million a day? How greedy? How much money do you need? He makes $9 million a year. How much money do you need? That's one angle. Another one, and this is utter speculation, but there's an element of athletes feeling threatened as well. And to your story about the colleague who went to Russia, I've heard similar things. That sometimes this is an easy way to make more money than you're ever going to make by winning this match. All you have to do is double fault or get broken in the third game of the second set. But I've also heard some pretty unsavory threats. And if there's a temptation, it's not to make money, it's defense. It's to prevent harm. So I think just something people might want to bear in mind.